everybody! After another successful hunting season, I have a freezer full of meat, and now it is time to turn some of that meat into some good eats. I'm making this smoked cheesy pepperoni that everyone's gonna love. So let's get started. Let's take a look at the spice bill for this cheesy chorizo. When I make sausage, I always use metric measurements and weigh the ingredients for accuracy, but today I'm going to mix things up a little bit, and I'm going to use pounds and cups and spoons for all my American friends out there. And I'll try to give the metric measurements as I go, but if I miss something, you can find all the measurements as well as the percentages in the video description down below. I'll have to use slightly rounded figures, not unlike my own, because volumetric measurements and metric measurements don't really mesh that well together, but the rounded numbers will be close enough to not alter the results at all. So let's get started with the salt. And I'm going with 2.5% salt content in this one, so this is 6 tablespoons of plain non-iodized salt, and that weighs 113 grams. I'd like a little bit of sugar in here to kind of balance the saltiness and the sourness that this one's gonna have. Not enough to make it a sweet sausage at all. So this is 6 tablespoons of white sugar, and that weighs 90 grams. Now a pepperoni should have a lot of pepper flavor, so I'm using 3 different types of pepper today, starting with 6 tablespoons of paprika, and that weighs 45 grams. I've got 2 tablespoons of coarse ground black pepper, and that weighs 14 grams. And I also have 2 tablespoons of cayenne pepper, which also weighs 14 grams. What's really gonna give this that signature kind of pepperoni flavor is some fennel seed. This is 1 tablespoon of fennel seeds, and that weighs 11 grams. To be honest with you, I'm using 2 because I like a lot of that flavor. And when you're making your sausage, you can feel free to adjust these spices to customize it to however you like it. And I'm gonna take these whole fennel seeds and I'll just very, very coarsely grind them in my coffee grinder just to break them up a little bit. I want some nice kernels of fennel in there. And the last of my flavorings is gonna be 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, and that comes in at 7 grams. This is my cure. This is pink cure number 1, also known as Prague powder number 1, or pink curing salt. Now, to figure the amount of cure to use, you're gonna take the weight of the meat combined with the weight of the spices and multiply that number by 0.25%. So for this recipe, I've got 2 teaspoons of that cure, and that weighs 12 grams. I'm gonna use some binder today, and that binder is gonna be non-fat powdered milk. I've got 1.5 cups of that, and that weighs in at 120 grams. And to loosen the mix up and help everything blend together, I'm gonna add in just a little bit of liquid. I'll add in 1 cup of red wine when we get to the mixing. I'm making a 10-pound batch of sausage today. That's very close to 4.5 kilograms, and I'm going with 25% fat content. And in this recipe, I'm using venison and pork fat, but you could make this with beef and beef fat or beef and pork fat just as well. Mix, match, and meld your meats as you please. Just get the fat content right, and you're golden. It's mostly comprised of some of the tougher pieces of the deer that I butchered, and I've trimmed most of the silver skin off of there, but a little bit of that in your sausage won't hurt a thing. Using up the odds and ends is what sausage was made for. In fact, since I like to make everything with love, I'm gonna toss the deer heart in there as well. And with the heart thrown in, this is 7.5 pounds of lean red meat. So to get to my 25% fat content, I'm gonna add in 2.5 pounds of pork fat. And this is some nice homegrown pig fat here. Very good, very clean, and virtually meat-free, so it's very easy to get my measurements exactly where I want them. Now both my meat and my fat are icy cold, so let's bring in gnarls and grind it down. I'll be going with kind of a medium coarse grind on this one, so I'm going to throw in the 6mm plate. There we go. Nice looking grind on that. Light work for gnarls. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hams together for the mix master. Let's get this loaded up. Now I'm out of gloves, so we're doing this home style today. If you're mixing this by hand, you got your work cut out for you, but I used to do it all the time. You just gotta mix and mix and mix icy cold meat, painfully cold meat, for quite a long time until it gets very sticky. That's that good binding. You get real sticky. That is protein extraction, and that's what's going to give you a nice tight bind on your sausage. With the Mix Master, that's only going to take 5 minutes or so, but when I used to do it by hand, that would take 15 minutes or so, depending on how strong I was feeling at the time. There is that cup of red wine. That's just gonna help lube that up a little bit more so it's nice and easy to crank. Hit it! I can feel that getting quite a bit more difficult to spin now. So I'm gonna guess that we're good to go. And I'll test it by giving it a little pinch. Oh yeah. Sticky, icky, icky. Ooh, wait. Let's put it in the fridge. I like what I am smelling. Now this goes into the refrigerator overnight to let that cure work its magic, and we'll be back here bright and early on another Sausage Sunday to mix in the cheese and the citric acid and finish this spicy salchicha. It is a cold, wet, and dreary Sausage Sunday outside, but the sun always shines on you when you're making sausage. So this has been curing overnight to let that cure work around, kill any bugs that might be in there. And now, since I'm not going to be fermenting this sausage, but I do want that tangy flavor, I'm going to mimic the fermentation by using some citric acid. This is encapsulated citric acid, and it is important that you use this type of citric acid and not the other type that you might use when you're canning tomatoes, because this citric acid is encased in a waxy sort of pellet, and that is going to keep the citric acid from releasing into the meat until it reaches a certain high temperature. That way the citric acid isn't in there breaking down your meat for very long. And some people have commented that the citric acid is a cure accelerator, but not in this case, because that encapsulation keeps that citric acid pretty much inert until it melts away and releases the acid into the meat, and that's going to be well into the cooking process. But you do want to introduce this just before stuffing, because if you leave it in too long, overnight, say with the cure, then they can start to break down and release that citric acid too early. And this is also the time when I'm going to mix in my cheese. And today I'm using some high temperature mozzarella. And this high temperature cheese is made so it doesn't melt until a higher temperature. If I was to use just plain off the shelf mozzarella, it would likely start to melt and break, meaning the fat and the solids would separate, and that could leave little hollows in the sausage, as well as making the cheese kind of grainy, where this should stay nice and creamy. And today I'm going to be using these large fibrous casings. This is the first time I've actually used this particular casing. I've used other fibrous casings before, and these do need to soak in some warm water for 30 minutes before I stuff them, so I'll get that going now. I think I'll go with 0.75% citric acid content, so that'll be 34 grams here in my 10-pound batch. Let's see what that measures out to be in tablespoons. And you might be able to see how that is pelletized. 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, and it looks like, yeah, 2 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon got me right to 34 grams. Okay, and the first thing I'll do is get the citric acid blended in. So I want to get that really thoroughly mixed in. And the cheese, I'm going to do a little bit of a lighter touch when I mix it in so I don't bust it up a whole lot. Whew. That is cold and stiff. Generally, after curing, your meat is pretty stiff. Well, it's a little difficult to work. That looks pretty good. I think I got that citric acid mixed in there very well. And now I'm going to make 2 varieties here, one with the cheese, one without. So I'm going to split this in half, and then I'll mix the cheese into 1/2 of that. Okay, now, the cheese, I just kind of eyeball how much I want in there. I'll mix it around and just take a look. Make sure I got a little bit of cheesy bits in every clump. I generally am around 1/2 pound for 10 pounds of sausage, but a lot of people would absolutely double that amount. That's going to be something that is completely up to you. There we go. Since I had a partial bag of cheese, I wanted to get that used up, so I just threw the whole thing in here. So I did end up going with a 1/2 pound in this 5-pound batch, which is going to make for a very cheesy sausage. But usually I'll just pick off a lump here and there and make sure I'm getting some cheese in every bite. Yeah, and that's how I know it's good. So, I've got my cheesy mix and I've got my cheeseless blend for my lactose haters out there. And now it is time to lock and load and crank out this tart tube. welcome into the sausage closet, where I've got my freshly stuffed sausages hanging. I want to bring them up to temp real slow and get the casings nice and dry. So I've got some heat going on in here, and I'm going to keep this thing pretty warm in the 80-degree Fahrenheit range and let these sit in here for at least an hour, even up to 2 hours. Just kind of bring them up slow. And I want nice dry casings when I get them out into the smoker. Speaking of which, I'm going to be trying out a brand new smoker today, so I'm going to go out there and do a burn off on it while these guys are hanging out. Oh, let's take a look at the new smoker here. This is a Pit Boss, I think it's 7 cubic foot smoker. And this one does have automatic controls, which is something I don't have any experience with. The lowest setting on this is 150 degrees Fahrenheit, but I like to get them going lower than that, starting in at around 130, sometimes even lower if I'm drying things out more. So I'll probably have to crack the door. It's going to help that it is really cold out here today. I saw a little snow flurry earlier. It won't have the infinite range of temps that I can get with the manual knobs over there on the old smoker. But that old smoker does require a lot of fiddling around and a lot of babysitting, especially if it's cold or windy outside. So, hopefully this one will make life a little easier when I'm doing this. A little more set it and forget it style. Alright, there we go. The casing's got nice and dry in there. Now I got the water pan going. Get some of that humid smoke sticking on there and penetrating into those logs. Well, everything's looking good right now. The temperature is nice and low, and I do want to bring them up very slowly so I get nice and even cooking. And I'm going to go with a pretty long smoke on these today. My smoke schedule is going to be 2 hours at 130 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll follow that with 2 hours at 140. Then I'll raise that up to 150 degrees, and I'll just continue to smoke them until they look as dry and smoky as I want them to be. And that is a matter of personal preference. I want to concentrate the flavor on these, so I'm going to dry them a little longer than I normally do. So I'll probably give them at least 4 hours at that 150 degree temperature. And it's going to get dark out here long before these are finished, so we'll give them until dusk and give them a quick peek and check our progress, and then I'll update you on finishing these off. Alright, I've got about 3 hours smoke time on these. Let's take a quick peek. Definitely getting some good color going on there. But I am having some trouble keeping the temperature from fluctuating too much in here. That could be just because I don't know the smoker very well yet, and it is a nasty day out here. So I've got the old guy on standby, and I am actually going to transfer these over there, then go to that 150 degree Fahrenheit cook time. And that is just because I'm very familiar with the old smoker, and I know exactly where I need to set things. I'm not going to pass judgment on this one yet, because it is a particularly nasty day out here today. And of course I skipped the tutorial, so maybe I'll take out the manual and give it a little peruse. Mess with this a little more before I risk my good venison in there. You know, I cherish that stuff. So I'll get this transferred over to the old smoker, running at 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and we'll probably give that another 3 or 4 hours. Take a look, and then raise the temperature up to the final cooking temperature of 180 degrees. So we're just about out of daylight. Let's take one last peek in here. Ooh, now we're getting some real nice color going on these. So I'm going to keep them going at 150 degrees for another couple hours. I might even get some wrinkles in these guys. Normally I like to keep them nice and plump and shiny, but I think I might dry these a little further. We'll see how it goes. So what I want to do is get a probe down into the center of one of these, Then after I'm done with my 150-degree smoke time, I'm going to raise the temperature of the smoker to 180 degrees and finish these off to an internal temperature of 155 degrees. And anywhere between 152 to 160 is kind of the sweet spot for these guys. Actually, my favorite way to finish them is to put them in a sous vide water bath. It finishes them really quickly and it cooks so evenly, but today I'm going to go ahead and do it the old-fashioned way and leave them out here in the smoker until they're done. Alright, my probe is showing me that we're done out there. I'll run out and I'll check it real quick with a handheld to make sure everything is right. And then we're going to get that stuff out of there and right down into this ice bath. Whew! Oh yeah! Check that out. That's a beaut. Nice and tight still. No runoff. Now, we got to get it down and into this ice to stop that cooking. Preserve them just like they are. There we go. Want to get that cooking stopped and get these things cooled down into their core just as quick as you can. That way they'll stay nice and fat and shiny. So I'll leave them down in this ice water for 20-30 minutes maybe. I'll pull them out of there, hang them up in the sausage closet to dry out, and we'll be done for the day. Oh yeah, those are some beauties. Really good looking. They smell great. But boy, that was a long day of smoking. That ended up taking, let's see, about 10 and a half, almost 11 hours. I smoked them for 7 hours, and then that finishing cooking took 4 hours. I've gotten so used to finishing these off in the sous vide that I almost forgot how long it can take to finish them out there. But the results are really gorgeous. So now I'm just going to leave them out here in the sausage closet. Got a low fan going in there, and I just want to get them all dried off. And I will pop these in the refrigerator, and we'll try them out tomorrow. Now that is a great looking sausage. It's nice and tight, very firm now from that extra long smoke, and the color, it's a beautiful color. If you remember, the casings, they're nearly transparent to start. So all that color is the color of the sausage now. Now let's get a look inside. Oh yeah. Woo! Great color. Beautiful grain. You see the cheese and the fat in there. Some nice coarse bits of venison. Oh man. It looks excellent. Of course, what really matters is the taste.
And you just got me jumping through hoops. But I really don't care, man. I see through all of that. That's just your heart going loop-de-loop. Crazy good, crazy good. That's not what love's gonna be. Crazy good, crazy
Check out that bite.
That's all love, believe you me.
Oh yeah. Ooh, I tell ya, that is good. Oh, that's tasty. It's nice and smoky. Of course, the texture is perfect. This is cooked perfectly for me. There's plenty of cheesiness in there. Got just a tiny bite of spiciness. and then you get a little bit of that fennel right at the end. Outstanding stuff. Now this is by no means a traditional dry cured pepperoni. It's quite different from that. It's not as dense as that would be. It's a little less oily, and traditional pepperoni isn't smoked. This is more of a pepperoni-inspired summer sausage, if you will, and it is delicious. This is gonna go great on your charcuterie plate or in a sandwich, and yes, it will be fantastic on your pizza. I hope all you hunters out there are having a whole lot of success, and if you're not a hunter and you just got a bunch of meat to use, give this one a try, and I know you're gonna love it. Thanks for watching.
That's how my love's gonna be.
Hot dog.
Crazy good. Crazy good. That's all love, believe you me. Crazy good. Crazy good.